Well, good morning, everyone. We are now back again for NFL Fantasy Matchup. We're on now twice a week now. Jed, Jimmy, Chicago, as well as Phoenix. Good morning, everyone.
Morning.
Morning.
All right, before we start, and I know today we want to look at QBs, and we also want to look at the AFC South. The one that I actually want to talk with you about is my own. I did a draft with my wife's family, all right? I had the second pick out of a 10-person league, and I fully expected to pick Dalvin Cook. Number one draft pick, Patrick Mahomes. I'm sorry, what in the world is this guy doing? So then I ended up picking Christian McCaffrey. So here's who I ended up with, and I want to see what you guys thought.
Wait, Tom, before you say this, Jed, this is, if they're not listening, this is Charlene's family. I don't know how many of them even know what players are out there.
Yeah, probably not a lot.
Well, there's a couple of them who are pretty good. But here's my starting quarterback is Kyler Murray. My wide receivers are Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf, Deontay Johnson.
Woo.
And then my running backs are McCaffrey, Dobbins, who I got in the 5th round. I was so surprised Dobbins was sitting there in the 5th round. Jonnu Smith, Chase Edmonds. But my backup is Etienne, Sermon, Jalen Waddle, and Michael Thomas.
So you can just take the championship home, man. That sounds
Yeah.
pretty good.
I was surprised. Now, the only one, and you guys, we were just talking about it, the two guys that I really regretted that Antonio Gibson was picked right before me. And I was sitting there, I was just ready to grab him instead of J.K. Dobbins, but he picked just before me.
Oh, that would have been, Gibson
yes.
would have been nuts.
Yes. And then Kyle Pitts was in the 6th round, and I was just about to pick him, and the guy before me picked him again.
That's the worst feeling when someone swoops in right before you. That's the worst.
Yes. But I think a lot of times for us is all of us play in multiple leagues, all right? And I bet you a lot of times people are not familiar with the rookies or the sleepers that you and I, both of us, all three of us look at all the time.
Okay, so there was this debate on ESPN the other day, and they said, in a snake draft, what position do you like the best?
I never understand this when people are like, oh, I want 9 or 10. Mm-hmm. You always want to be first. Like, if you look at the teams, like, you want to be early. Like, I just don't get the argument. If you want to say, like, oh, the difference between, like, 3 versus 6 or something, but the difference between 1 and 10 is big, right? Like, I just don't understand people who say that.
Yeah.
I'm more of a middle of the road type of guy, right? Like I can handle 1, I can handle 2, but I really like the 4 and 5 position just because like I feel like you get a good chunk of players that always comes to you and you have a wider selection. Because when you're at 1 and 2, I mean, unless you're like Tommy's family who picks up Patrick Mahomes in the first pick, you usually know who your picks are, right? But you have a little bit more flexibility and you can play around with your team a little bit more at 4 or 5.
Hey, now, my wife, what do you think of this? Because this might be a strategy some of us are in. She had the 9th pick, right? So I said, why don't you consider picking a tight end? So she picked up Travis Kelce, Austin Eckler, running back, and then went around and picked up George Kittle. So 2 tight ends. I said, you got the 2 best tight ends in the whole group. What do you think of that?
Yeah, that's not bad. I like that. I've said that since last year, it's the first time you could play 2 tight ends in your starting lineup. So I have no problem with that. And like you said, she's got a lock hold on all the best tight ends. Everyone else is left scrambling.
Yeah, and then I said, look, Charlene, if anyone needs a tight end, then you could always trade for 2 players later on in the year. Yeah.
That is the one benefit about being towards 9 and 10, though, is you get the wraparound, right? So even with Charlene, you got 3 decently pretty good players because they come right after each other.
Yep. Hey, let's go over to the AFC South. I know Jimmy has to run in about 20 minutes, and then Jen and I are going to finish recording as well, too. Let's start with Ryan Tannehill. Look, I mean, no one ever expects – when you think of quarterbacks, Ryan Tannehill – is probably not in your top quarterbacks, but if you wait for a quarterback and then suddenly in the 10, team league, you could probably get him as one of your last quarterbacks. Jed, let me start with you. What do you think of Ryan Tannehill? Is that someone that you would aim for?
Yeah, no, I don't think that Ryan Tannehill should be one of the starting quarterbacks in a 10-team league or a 12-team league. I mean, he's at the back end of that, but especially, with Julio coming over, I mean, that is a stacked lineup for him. Now, the concern is, are they going to, focus on running more? But I actually don't think so. I think, if anything, they may want to save Derrick Henry a little bit. I like Tannehill. I don't have a problem with that.
Jim, speaking before I go, I actually want to talk to you about the wide receivers. Since Jed is the biggest Derrick Henry fan of all of us, if you had a choice, let's say you had the third pick, Derrick Henry or Alvin Kamara, who would you pick, Jed?
Oh, for me, I'm definitely picking Derrick Henry. I know Kamara with especially PPR leagues, there's that extra benefit, but especially at the confusion at the quarterback position, I still cannot believe that Taysom Hill might be the starting quarterback. That just blows me away. But no, for me, that's a no-brainer. I'm taking Derrick Henry there all the way.
Yep. Hey, Jim, in terms of wide receivers, how high is A.J. Brown on your list?
Actually, he was higher without Julio Jones.